This is the Canon G7X Mark III, and this is the brand new Sony ZV1. And in this video, we're going to break down each camera and decide which one is better for creating YouTube videos. Sparkling lemon and lime, no crash, no jitters, keeps you focused with L-theanine, 120 grams of caffeine. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be drinking this right now. Now, this little guy has gotten quite some hype over the last few months amongst the YouTube community, and I wanted to compare it to one of the go-to vlogging cameras, the G7X Mark III. First, we're gonna break down the tech and see how these two cameras compare. Make sure you guys watch to the end of this video because I'm gonna show you some of the badass new features that the Sony has put into their new camera, the ZV1. Okay, so first off, obviously, let's chat price. The Canon G7X sits at $750, and the Sony ZV1 is $798. Next, let's chat size. The G7X is approximately 4 inches by 2 inches by 1 inches, and the ZV1 is approximately 4 inches by 2 inches by 1 inches. And both lenses collapse in when the camera is powered off. In other words, they are both the same size and small enough to fit in your pocket. When it comes to the lens, there is a subtle difference between both setups. Both cameras have a minimum aperture of 1.8. However, the focal range of the G7X is 24 to 100, and the ZV1 is 24 to 70. Now, if you ask me, that is a pretty trivial difference. When it comes to making YouTube videos specifically, it's not often you're going to need to be zoomed in past 70, especially if you're just shooting talking head videos like this one or going out and vlogging. 24 to 70 is actually a pretty good range because it's wide enough to be vlogging with, and 70 is zoomed in enough to get some compressed B-roll shots, or if you need to zoom in on the tripod. Not to mention, there are a few cool features on the new Sony. We'll get into that at the end of the video. But moving right along, let's talk about the microphone. Now, both cameras have a mic jack, so you can plug in your external mic. However, a new feature of the Sony ZV1 is the internal microphone. Now, most of the time, built-in microphones are pretty useless. Even on this expensive DSLR like the EOS R that I'm using, I'm actually using an external microphone because the internal one is pretty shitty. However, since Sony has built this camera with vlogging and YouTubers in mind, they have stepped up their audio game, and it actually sounds pretty good. All right, guys, this is an audio test on the new ZV1. I'm using the internal microphone with a wind cover on top, and as you can see, we're here in Malibu, California, where it is quite windy. They also provide you with this little wind protector for shooting outside when it's loud or if you need to block wind. Next up, let's chat recording settings. Now, both cameras shoot 4K at 30 frames and up to 120 frames at 1080. However, one very cool feature of the Sony ZV1 is that it actually shoots at a whopping 960 frames. Now, that is something you typically cannot access unless you have a professional cinema camera. Now, keep in mind, in order to access this frame rate, you have to shoot at a lower resolution, but regardless, that allows you to access some pretty cool shots that you would not otherwise be able to do with a camera that's less than $1,000. Let's chat color science. Now, Canon is typically known for its amazing color and skin tone out of camera, but Sony has actually stepped up their game with this one and upgraded their color science so you don't get that slightly oversaturated GoPro look. Not to mention, the ZV1 has log on it, so you have the choice to use that if you're someone who wants to color grade your footage. Some other important factors to consider: while the recording limit for the Canon G7X maxes out at 30 minutes, there's actually an unlimited recording time for the ZV1. And once again, that is not something that is common for a budget camera, and it's actually a really cool feature. If you're filming a sit-down video, you actually don't have to really think about what you're doing. You can just set up your camera, turn it on, and be good to go. Now, of course, just because your camera records unlimited does not mean that the battery will last that long. That said, I did do a test, and the camera battery maxes out at around 1 hour when filming at 1080. Now, you do have an option to get a continuous power source that you can plug into the wall for your camera, but obviously it's a good idea to have a few extra batteries as well. Now, finally, I want to highlight one of the most important factors, which is the flip out screen. This is such a helpful feature, especially for anyone who is filming themselves. The G7X flips up, while the ZV1 actually flips out to the side. This is the first model that Sony has added a flip out screen to, and if you ask me, this is actually probably the most important feature for YouTubers. It's easy to focus on all the stats and all the numbers, but when it comes down to it, this is something that you'll be using every single time you film. All right, now that we've gone over the specs and the tech, let's actually dive into some of the unique features that this little guy has. First, let's look at this button right here, which is the defocus button. What this does is that it automatically turns down the aperture to 1.8 and exposes for your face. And this is something that was actually added for vlogging in mind. Next up for the win is the built-in ND filter. Now, since these cameras do not give you the option to use other lenses where you can actually put on ND filters, this is a super helpful feature. If you aren't familiar with an ND filter, it basically is like sunglasses for your camera. In other words, you can still get that blurred out background look while not looking like you're shooting in heaven. All right, so now for the $1 million question, which camera do you buy and who are these cameras for? In my opinion, both of these cameras are amazing for new YouTubers or anybody who is new to shooting video. They're both small, easy to use, and although they are on the cheaper side, they both produce amazing quality video. Now, obviously, if you are a filmmaker or somebody looking to create cinematic videos, these are obviously not the best choice, particularly due to the fact that you cannot use certain lenses that allow you to capture that cinematic footage, and just the nature of the build of these camera sensors is subpar to a pro DSLR. However, that does not mean you cannot create amazing videos with either of these cameras, but which one? Now, if you ask me, I would actually go with the Sony ZV1 if you haven't already guessed. Now, I'm somebody who has historically always used Canon cameras. I have 6 of them. I have all different ranges from cinema cameras to DSLRs. But this little guy, when it compares to both these, I actually think stands out. That all said, at the end of the day, what matters most is how comfortable you are with using your camera and how well you know how to use it. It's easy to get carried away with the tech and forget about what actually matters is your message. What story are you telling, or what are you teaching? That is what is actually going to connect with your audience most, not what lens you have or what little features that you have on your camera. That is just extra. That's it for this video, guys. I've put links in the description to both of these cameras, along with a list of resources I've put together to help you guys get set up on YouTube. If you found this video helpful, I would love for you to subscribe. I come out with new videos every week diving into YouTube, cameras, and how you can create dope videos for your channel. If you're into that, make sure to check out the playlist at the end of this video, and I'll see you guys next week.